Good evening everyone, and welcome to the Wokingham Borough Council's Planning Committee. We can't actually start the agenda until 7 o'clock, but I do have a few comments that I need to make for everyone, so I'm just going to read those out. We've got a PA system, mobile phones should be turned off or silent, and there is no fire drill planned tonight. The proceedings are filmed, as you can see, and will be available on the Wokingham Borough website. You'll see from the camera position that committee members, council officers and registered speakers will normally be recorded, but speakers may ask not to be filmed, but their comments will be audio recorded. The planning committee is made up of 9 elected members, and I shall ask them to introduce themselves one by one. I shall start over there on my right with Chris.
Chris Barrett, member for Evidence Warden, Woking.
Wayne Smith, member for Hurst.
Michelle Shepherd-Debay, member for Winnish.
Michael Richards, member for Norwich in Wokingham.
John Kaiser, Vice Chair and member for Barkham.
Tim Holton Hawkton in Lower Early.
Bill Soane, Loddon in Woodley.
Philip Holter, member for Winnish.
I'm Michael Frobisher, member for Hawkton in Lower Early.
Okay, thank you. And we are supported and advised by a variety of professional council officers. And I now ask the officers to introduce themselves, starting with my far right.
Good evening, my name is Mary Severing. I'm a solicitor advising the planning committee this evening.
My name's Arabella Yaradol. I'll be clerking the committee.
I'm Mark Cupid, Delivery Programme Director. I'm here tonight as lead planner for supporting Tim.
Chris Easton, Service Manager for Highways, and again supporting the members on highway matters.
Thank you very much. The planning officers presenting tonight's applications are sat at my far left, and they will be introduced when presenting their applications. This is a quasi-judicial committee with formal set procedures and conduct. Firstly, the planning officer will present each application. Then I will call in turn only those who are pre-registered to speak. Please come forward to the table. The microphone is controlled by the grey button on the base. The time limit of 3 minutes for each category of speaker will be strictly enforced, so please ensure you get your key points across within your allotted time. Members of the committee are interested in the quality of what you have to say and not for how long that you speak for. I emphasise that only those that are pre-registered may speak. No others, including town or parish councillors, agents, applicants, objectors or supporters, are permitted to address the committee, ask questions or interrupt the meeting. Following the planning officer's presentation and the comments of registered speakers, the planning committee members will consider, question and seek clarification for the application and hopefully reach a decision which may or may not agree with the planning officer's recommendation. Finally, a reminder that the local planning authority's role is to determine any valid planning application using local and national planning policy. Our role is not to suggest alterations to the scheme, whether they are a good idea or indeed needed, whether they are too costly or whether they are alternative use. Thank you very much, and I shall move on to the agenda now. It's gone 7 o'clock. Right. I can see I have no apologies from members. So we can go on to the minutes. Are there any amendments required to the minutes? No? Can I just have a show of hands saying for approval? Thank you very much. Does anyone need to declare an interest? No? Okay. And then I'll just ask, are there any applications to be declared?
No, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right, so the first application then is on page 11. It's item 123. Montague Park in London Road. It's a reserved matters application for details of appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. The principle of the development has already been approved. It is before the committee tonight as it's a major development, and the case officer is Emily Circuit. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. The development of Montague Park is the first phase of the South Wokingham strategic development location, which will ultimately be a comprehensively planned development of around 2,500 new homes with the infrastructure required to support it. And although the Montague Park is the first phase of South Wokingham, we're now at the stage of the final phase of this part of the development. Outline planning permission for 650 dwellings was approved in December 2012, and it consolidated the vision set out in our planning policy documents of a walkable neighbourhood with different character areas within it and a neighbourhood centre forming a focus for community activity at the centre of it. And as the final phase of the 7 phases, this one includes that neighbourhood centre. The impact of the development was fully assessed at the outline stage against our planning policies, and to demonstrate that it complied, it was supported by a whole range of documents. There was an environmental impact assessment, a transport assessment, and a design and access statement that included an assessment of the character of the area and then worked through how that would influence the character of the development as it came forward. So the outline has established the amount of development, the range of uses, roughly where they'll be on the site, the sort of network of circulation around the site, ranging from the Southern Distributor Road running through as a tree-lined boulevard, right down to the network of informal paths in the Sang. And it also set out what was required in terms of infrastructure to support the development, both on-site and off-site, which was secured through a Section 106 agreement. So, as the Chairman has said, all those principles have been established, and we're now looking at the appearance, landscaping, layout and scale, and how well this proposal fits with the principles that were established by the Outline Planning Commission. What you see here are on the left the character typology drawing from our adopted supplementary planning document that started to establish at a high level some principles about character areas within the strategic development location, and the idea that you would have a higher density development along the key routes like the Southern Distributor Road, and then sort of lower density around the peripheries of the development where it adjoins the countryside. And then on the right is a drawing from the design and access statement for the application, which kind of refined that thinking for the site itself. It followed through from the supplementary planning document with a higher density character area extending along the Southern Distributor Road, including the area where the neighbourhood centre is, and then lower density areas along Clay Lane, on the edge adjoining the Sang, and then where it differs slightly from the SPD, having looked in more detail at the character of the area, it also proposed a slightly lower density of development along London Road. I think members have seen when they visited the site how successful that is in integrating it with the character of London Road as it is already. And of course the other thing that the SPD established was the idea of the neighbourhood centre as a heart for activity at the centre of the development. Turning now to what is actually proposed within phase 6 of the development, the sort of key building is the mixed-use building, which fronts the Southern Distributor Road as expected by the adopted guidance. It includes the ground floor, retail uses and a community building. And then between the building and the road is a 71-space car park, which is purely to serve those community-based users and also as a drop-off for the school. Members will probably remember there's a staff car park in the school, and this car park has been designed to serve those sort of community users, people coming and going to those. The parking strategy has been looked at quite robustly. It's looked at the floor space and different uses, what the standards would indicate would be required for those, but then taking into account that it's a shared car park, it's looked at the sort of level of use that would be generated by each of the uses, when the peak demand would be, where those peak demands overlap, to calculate the maximum demand and demonstrate that that car park will satisfy that. Just to the south of the community building is a fairly formal area of public open space. The thing that's very positive about that, it adjoins the community building, so there's the opportunity to sort of spill out and have community events and activities taking place there. And it's also where people will pass through on the pedestrian link to the main entrance to the school. And it will be the location for one of the 3 pieces of public art as well. So again, good focus for the community. Then just slightly further to the east, you've got the neat neighbourhood area of Clay, which is the largest of the 4 play areas within the development, and it's very well located in so much as it's got the surveillance from some of the adjoining properties that will help with security and safety of people using it, but it also adjoins the green corridor that runs through the site and the SAM, so it relates really well to the other public open space and how people might use that. And then on the completing that block with the neighbourhood centre community facilities, you have another block of flats and then some more residential development just to the north. Now, I think one of the things that's come through consultation that people do have some concerns about is the level of car parking within the development. I've already touched on the community car parking. And what you'll see there, I've highlighted in sort of colour the buildings and then the allocated car parking in the same shade to relate to them. So what you can see is the amount of allocated parking, then using our standards, which are based on research in the borough, then sort of indicate an amount of unallocated parking for residents and visitors that are required on top of that. And the proposals are exactly in line with our policy in that respect. The dwellings also meet our standards in terms of internal space standards. As expected, it's the densest part of the development, and you wouldn't necessarily expect quite such high levels of private amenity space as you would elsewhere in the development. But in fact, all the houses have got a garden, and a good proportion, the majority of the flats also have a balcony. And as I mentioned, you've got quite a bit of open space. You've got the green corridors around to the north and south of this, and there is no provision of open space compared to our requirements in the development as a whole. So I think the dwellings are well placed to take advantage of that. Moving on to the character of the buildings more, what you have here are the building heights and density parameters that were approved at the outline stage, and as you'd expect, the lighter colours represent the lower densities and building heights, building up to the higher densities and heights being darker. And you can see that confirms what I've been saying about the higher heights being in that area around the neighbourhood centre and at the junction of the secondary access road with the southern distributor road. And then on the right, there are the proposed building heights, which fit very well with those parameters. You've got the 3.5-storey mixed-use building, then 3-storey in the residential block to the east of that, and a mix of 2- and 3-storey in the northern perimeter block there. So that all fits very well with the principles that were established by the Outline Planning Commission. And in terms of the appearance of the building, all of the buildings within this phase follow the principles that were established by the outline. The idea of having terrace houses and flats with a fairly formal, fairly continuous frontage along the southern distributor road, and following some of the ideas of gables and dormers and the use of materials that have been seen elsewhere in the development. But the mixed-use building has taken a slightly more modern approach to the design, which is very important because some of the principles about it are that it needs to stand out so that it's obvious that it is the focus for community activity and that they are sort of buildings with a public destination as well. So that helps with it fulfilling that landmark building role. Then the second block of flats to the east of that, sort of forming part of that same perimeter block, follows through also with a more modern, although slightly more domestic design. And then the street scenes here show that the northern block is more similar to some of the development that we've already seen within Montague Park. So at the top you've got the street scene facing onto that internal road. The second row down is the elevation facing towards the play area. Then the middle row is facing the national corridor to the north, and then you've got the view along the southern distributor road at the bottom there. And I know members have visited the site on a couple of different occasions and seen the development in the earlier phases, which was primarily family housing, much lower density, a much more suburban type character. But what they might not be so familiar with some of the development that's been taking place more recently in the vicinity of the neighbourhood centre. So I've just included a few pictures here showing that. So the two pictures on the left are the corner of the building on the corner of the secondary access road with the Southern Distributor Road, which was identified as a bit of a landmark location for 3.5-storey development. And then on that bottom left picture, you see that continuing with what are actually flats along the Southern Distributor Road. The picture at the top middle is sort of looking back along that road in the opposite direction, slightly further to the east. And then the two pictures on the right are development further east along the Southern Distributor Road in some of the earlier phases, but that is a mixture of houses and flats. So I think that gives you an idea of, translates some of those street scenes you've just seen into what the development would look like in real life once it's been constructed. Another issue and concern that's come through from consultation has been about the proportion of flats proposed within this phase of the development, and certainly the proportion within phase 6 is high, but I think it needs to be seen in the context of the development as a whole, because what the Outline Planning Commission established in line with our policies is that it would have different character areas and that the distribution of dwelling types and sizes wouldn't be evenly distributed across the site. And what you can see here, the buildings identified in purple are flats and those in green are houses. So in terms of the area of the site overall, the flats are actually in a relatively small proportion of the site around that neighbourhood centre and the junction with the Southern Distributor Road, the secondary access. And then you've just got a few odd floor blocks of flats, mainly actually flats, those are garages scattered in the earlier phases of the development. So I think that reinforces that idea about the different areas, parts of the site having different characters, which helps with the distinctiveness and presence of the development, and also in terms of identifying the different roles of the different parts of the site. The outline planning application prioritised character and those different character areas over achieving a specific mix, although it did establish that there would be a mix and variety of dwelling types and sizes. And what we have here, looking at the site as a whole, is delivering mainly houses with a proportion of flats. The mix of dwelling sizes is very close to what we were anticipating. You've got slightly fewer one-bedroom units and slightly fewer five-bedroom units, but generally very close. What was fixed was the proportion of affordable housing in terms of the number of units, the tenure split, and also the mix. And the affordable housing provision fits completely with what we were expecting based on the outline planning commission. And then sort of moving on from the affordable housing, this is the final phase of the development. It's worth recapping on the on-site infrastructure required to support it and just where we are with that. The affordable housing is in line with the Outline Planning Commission. We have the first section of the Southern Distributor Road running through the site. The new primary school, which is Florent Montague Park Primary, is open now. It's been constructed as a two-form school, but able to extend to three forms. The shell of the third form entry is there. The playing fields have been developed and can be used by the school and also for community use outside school hours. Three pieces of public art, one in situ already at the junction of London Road, one imminently to be installed within the SANG, and then the third piece will be within the neighbourhood centre. The neighbourhood centre itself, which is the subject of this application, you've got the SANG, another amenity open space, and on-site allotments as well down in the southern part of the site. Which brings me to the recommendation. As I said at the start, the application is looking for reserved matters approval for the appearance, landscaping, layout and scale of development. And so really the key question is how well they fit with the principles that have already been established by policy and the Outline Planning Commission. And I think, I hope it will be apparent from my presentation, the scheme is consistent with those principles, and the recommendation is that it can be approved subject to the conditions in the agenda And then there are just a couple of small updates in the members' update, just confirmation that the variation of condition application mentioned in the report has been issued. Slight update, there's been a couple of tweaks to some of the layout drawings, which so the approved drawing condition is to be updated, and then just some clarification of the wording on conditions 4 and 5. Which deal with the detailed design of the access and parking within the phase and the management of that parking. Then one additional condition about just the detailed design, actually the roof of the building, and an informative about boundary treatments and the relating to the delivery management. So that concludes my presentation and recommendation for approval.
Thank you very much. The first registered speaker then is Andrew Waters from Wokingham Town Council.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've got a little aid memoir for members of your committee, if I may.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, members of the committee, before I start my presentation tonight, may I just inform you that Councillor Julian McGee-Sumner, who's the member for Westcott, was also due to speak on this application tonight. Unfortunately, he's not here. He's asked me to speak on his behalf as he fully shares the views of my committee at Wokingham Town Council in terms of this application. Okay. Whilst it is recognised that this phase of the development would always have a higher density than other phases of the Montague Park scheme, it is the submission of the Town Council Planning Committee and Westcott Borough Councillors that this application fails to meet fundamental requirements as set out in the adopted core strategy and the MDD. This application represents a densely populated urbanised development which is not viewed as high quality building, varies significantly in character from the surrounding development and that of Wokingham Town in general, and it is our submission that it represents an overdevelopment. There are serious concerns about the quality and sustainability of the design, in particular some of the apartments in what is known as Block C. The development comprises of over 91%, mainly 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, which is significantly at odds with the original application. Out of the 234 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings forecast in the original application, 104 will be crammed into this phase, the vast majority only barely meeting the minimum space requirements. To coin a phrase, members of the committee, it was described by one of my colleagues at the Town Council as being a ghetto in the making. You will no doubt be aware that CP3A of our adopted core strategy asks for developments of an appropriate scale, activity, mass and character in keeping with the area. But more importantly, the ones that do not impinge on the existing residents, and we have existing residents in Montague Park, and we are foisting what we believe is going to be a highly dense development right into their back door. In addition, we have serious concerns about the additional traffic that will be generated by this development. At present, there is no Southern Distributor Road, there is no bridge over the railway line to get to it. So the only way out is onto London Road, a road that if anyone drives down there at 9 o'clock in the morning is packed with traffic. Again, CP4 of the adopted core strategy clearly states that planning permission will not be granted unless appropriate arrangements for improved provision of infrastructure are taken into account. Clearly, that has not happened in this case. We also have concerns about the retail delivery. There seems to be no adequate provision for large vehicles to deliver to the retail store. A parking bay at the front of the larger retail store is there, but it will not take an articulated lorry, and we have serious doubts whether lorries of over 7.9 tonnes could turn in that area. I believe my time is short, so I would simply urge you to reject this application. Thank you very much.
Next we have Anne Gillings, the agent.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, members. As Amy said, this application represents the final phase and the completion of this part of the SDL for Wokingham. We've clearly been working with the officers for many years, and I would thank them for the positive and proactive manner in which they've dealt with the proposals in seeking to deliver a high quality place which has achieved building for life standards. Just to pick up on 3 points, if I may. Firstly, density. We've worked hard with the officers to propose a high quality layout which will protect residential amenity. The scheme is in accordance with the outline parameters, including the density parameters, which control the detail of this application, in that it specifically seeks to create a slightly different character in order to create that sense of place, that community hub. It is denser than the other phases, but that's intentional to try and create that hub. And overall, the whole of Montague Park still provides less than the 650 units permitted at 636, and a density of 34 dwellings per hectare across the whole site, which is what we thought would happen at outline stage. Secondly, on size mix, as I mentioned, we feel that one of the keys to this successful neighbourhood centre is about creating a slightly different feel, and as such, we have sought to include predominantly flats. There are houses proposed, particularly at that northern edge where it helps link with the other housing schemes next to it. The flats all meet internal space standards, and overall the balance of houses to flats across the whole site is 60-40 in favour of houses, which again is what we wanted at outline stage. And thirdly, just on the detailed management of the town centre neighbourhood centre parking, we agree that the success of the neighbourhood centre will be in how it actually works. We welcome the delivery strategy condition, which will ensure that when we know which operators are going to take the space, the details of their deliveries and the size of their vehicles can be agreed by the planning authority, so that we can avoid any conflicts both with each other and with the school. In terms of parking management generally, again, this is controlled by condition on the outline to be in accordance with the details that we've been submitted. And we remain confident that the number of spaces proposed will be sufficient. As set out in the committee report, we've done quite a lot of detailed work on that peak demand. The number is exactly in accordance with policy and the standards. So in summary, the scheme seeks to deliver the detail of this last phase of the outline and is policy compliant. I endorse the officer's report and commend the application to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Julian's not here, then that's all the pre-registered speakers for that. Now, I did make some comments that I would just like to have Emily just go over. I think actually the agent has also gone through them, but I would like to hear them from the officer as well, please. So if you could comment on the density and the character that we're getting here. And if you could comment on Block C about the number of 1 and 2 bed apartments. And then perhaps Chris can comment on the London Road access, and either of you perhaps to talk about the delivery to the stores and the size of the vehicles. Then I'll open it up to members after that.
Yes, on the sort of character, density, building height question, the SAD and the outline planning application were very clear that the neighbourhood centre should have a different character to identify it as the neighbourhood centre, so that it should be something of a landmark, and that you would expect it to have a higher density than the rest of the development, because you need to have people living there to get the vitality and the viability that makes it a successful, pleasant, attractive place to work as a neighbourhood centre. and the scale of development and density of development that are proposed here are in line with the outline parameters, so they are in line with what was expected at the outline stage and do comply with our planning policies. As far as the proportion of flats and houses, number 1 and 2 bedroom units are concerned, again, there wasn't a fixed number of a mix at the outline stage, but there was an indicative mix. What we've got is a good fit with that, and it's not a uniform distribution across the site, but again, that is necessary to help with that character building, identifying different parts of the site having different characters. If you were to uniformly distribute all the flats and all the different sized dwellings across the site, you would actually end up with a very monotonous development. The point about the design of Block C, the flats there, it wasn't specifically said, but I understand the Town Council have some concerns about some of the flat over garages, which there are 4 of. But I think there are different types of dwellings that provide different sorts of accommodation that suit different people, and there is a market for that sort of accommodation. There are people who don't like having a garden, and they are very positive in terms of giving you a continuous frontage, not having big openings looking into parking courtyards, and also providing an element of surveillance over the parking courtyards that helps with their security and makes them safe places that the people will use. So I think there is a place for a certain number of dwellings of that type within the development.
Chris, access to London Road.
Yep. I think just picking up on, obviously, the outline for the scheme has already been accepted. At the time the outline was assessed, the transport was reviewed in terms of using the transport model and obviously independently, and the assessment was done with the full SDR in place and obviously without the SDR in place. And that was one of the reasons this scheme obviously got consented for 650 units. I think as obviously Emmy and the agent have mentioned, that only 636 units are currently being delivered. Therefore, it's lower than what was initially consented for. And on that basis, the junction as well on London Road was built to accommodate the cumulative effect of the whole SDL, so it was built once, not gone in and built in a piecemeal approach. So in that respect, we're happy, and that's acceptable.
Yes.
There's probably a bit of a history behind this that has been forgotten. The site was master planned, and the master plan was approved by the council. And what we've been doing since it was approved is working with a developer over quite a lengthy period to implement what was agreed. What was agreed was approved in the outline planning application, and that's a graduation of different densities across the site in a very high quality placemaking exercise. And the heart of it is a neighbourhood centre, and a neighbourhood centre is different because it's designed to look different. It's taller, it's high density, it has flats in it, it has retail in it, and it's a nexus of activity around a distinctive bit of placemaking. If we had set out to build the whole site with semi-detached houses at 34 dwellings per hectare, you would have had a sea of completely indistinguishable housing. That's not what we set out to do. That would not have been a quality placemaking exercise. I lived in Coventry for 5 years when I was at university, and I know what that looks like. I lived in it for 5 years. It's not good placemaking. And that's why when you build a district or a neighbourhood centre with bland, low-density housing going right up to it, they fail. You see shops shut, you see buildings that were supposed to be shops turned into flats, and you see a lot of dissatisfaction with the viability and vitality of the retail core. What we're trying to do is have a really good footfall around the shops, so they have at least a reasonable chance of having some vitality and viability. That's why it is what it is. That's the history lesson, and I know that there are certain members of the Town Council who were party to that because they helped write the design guide.
There was just a last one on delivery.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of delivery, there is obviously you've got the circulation through the site, which obviously can come in here, and it's through, but there is also, there's a loading bay here which is 15 metres long. Now in terms of the size of vehicles, We have had obviously conversations with the developers, and as such, condition 5 has been applied to ensure that a delivery strategy is secured prior to occupation of the premises.
Right, members. Sean.
Parking, number 1. Everybody knows that, parking. There are 159 dwellings and 115 dwellings and 159 spaces. That sounds like standards from a previous government before 2010, who liked to cram a lot of, who expected everybody to walk and do things. The second thing is, the neighborhood center has 71 spaces with 55 drop-off spaces for the school. This is a dual-form school, which represents about 420 students. Living near a dual-form school, I can tell you there are over 100 people dropping cars off, but at the time when school drops off. But more importantly, when it's pickup time, there's even more cars, it seems, and they're all crammed in there. If you ever tried to get out from some of these areas where schools are, to go someplace else other than the school, you are in real fun shape. You have 71 spaces, 55 drop-off spaces. That's about 250 spaces short. And otherwise, I think you're going to have a lot of fun trying to figure out where you pull the cars.
I know we do this most committees, which is fine, but in terms of the parking, obviously the council has a standard, has a guidance. That guidance obviously comes from consultation. The guidance was
now we have 159 spaces for 115 dwellings.
But in terms of that, is this standard, this development meets the council standards exactly as is set out in the guidance. So in terms of the school parking, you'll probably be aware as well, we've had on other schemes where schools, the only parking required is for 1 space per full-time equivalent staff member. So in this scheme, obviously at the outline stage, through conversations we had with members and the developers, we secured an area of parking. So in the SPD, through the master planning, there was established that the parking at the district centre would be shared use available for those to the school. There was a walkway provided, leading through from that directly into the school through that walkway. Through the report, there's quite a big section through, I think, 83.83 through to 90 about how the parking was obviously reviewed, the land use is taking consideration of. Parking accumulation was reviewed, undertaken, this is not there yet, but in terms of using the land uses to determine those factors and the dwell times of each of those vehicles. We also need to bear in mind this is a new settlement that's being delivered. It's in the heart of the development with about, the site's only 500 metres wide, but about 500 metres deep, and it's central to that whole development, and all those walking cycle routes to it are fantastic compared to what have been delivered with previously old schemes, with great links into London Road and future to the south over the SDL completed.
The dwell time around my house is about an hour on the average, not 20 minutes, because most of the parents who are picking up the children want to come and gab for a while before they actually come, before they go and pick up their children. So 20 minutes is not realistic, and the amount of spaces is not realistic overall. I think the retail center is going to have a fun time getting customers to come in there because their spaces are all going to be taken up with residents.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Michael?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that. I've got one concern. I mean, I think we've heard parking, which is obviously a concern, but it's also the London Road, additional traffic that will be generated onto London Road until the SDR is completed. Now, I think it's kind of got a little bit glossed over how that can be managed. And I know that Councillor Waters mentioned it in his speech as well, and that does concern me. I know London Road, I've driven down it a few times, it's incredibly chock-a-block at the best of times. This will have more traffic on it. Until the SDR is completed, what measures, can you detail exactly what measures are going to be in place? And if they don't work, what other matters or whatever, any sort of other measures you can take as well with regard to that, if that makes sense, hopefully.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes back to the answer I gave before with the outline consent. And this scheme being consented, that access has been built to accommodate these houses. Copy Bridge Roundabout was also upgraded as part of funding received through the applications in both Wokingham and Bracknell. And so the junction is in. You're probably aware that the front of the Keepatch Beach site has currently been cleared, and that junction will go in soon. So we've got the starting of both the NDR and the SDR on that section of London Road, and they are the mitigation measures for obviously all the housing in both North Wokingham and South Wokingham in that section. So what's coming has been commenced and obviously will be completed through the next number of years.
Yeah, I mean, so what about the additional traffic? I mean, obviously there will be more cars on it, but will it be as sort of as free flowing as it is now, or i.e. it won't get any worse?
That is just it. The junction has gone in, and the traffic signals and the works that have gone in at Copper Beach, they are mitigation for that local measure. The wider have been identified to be sufficient for the housing that's coming forward as part of this 636 units. And obviously the SDR will be completed over the next few years. By the end of 2018, we've got the Eastern Gateway going in, which then follows through to the rest of the SDR, as well as I mentioned, the early sections of the eastern end of the NDR, which will be delivered shortly in the next couple of months. They'll start the site to deliver that. But they're the measures that are going in, and they've been identified to be sufficient to accommodate this development in this area for the time being.
Okay, thank you.
Malcolm.
My usual range of questions. The roads, the site does look quite squashed, to be honest. But in terms of what is the width of these roads going around inside?
Which ones are we?
Which ones are we going in there? Vehicles going in there generally. What's the width of the road? It's a bit too small for me to read.
I think in this, without scaling it off here and giving the indication, my understanding is it is just 5 metres, which we can check for you in a second. The reason, obviously I haven't focused too heavily on the width of the road in terms of this one, we've obviously tracked it in terms of refuse vehicles and obviously the delivery vehicle that comes in to service it. Typically the discussions we've had at previous committees about the widths of roads have been for through routes. This obviously is leading to a cul-de-sac. This is leading obviously into the cul-de-sac. It's not a through route. Therefore, obviously, the widths of the carriageways aren't obviously as essential as you've been raising before in terms of the through routes and making sure. So the London, the NDR, SDR, the SDR that's out to the front, that's 6.1 metres. Obviously, that's been secured already. And the internal roads vary as they go through the rest of the development. And in terms of this one, this has been tracked adequately. We'll quickly check for you.
So there's room for 2 cars to pass?
Yes.
And if there's a large vehicle in there, is there room for a large vehicle and a car to pass?
Yes, on the tracking it's demonstrated that is the case. I will just check the width for you now with the scale.
And finally, in terms of vehicles, once they get in, can they get out of the larger vehicles? Is there any, how are they going to be turning around to come out if there's not an actual loop?
There's at the front of the site there is a loop, obviously you can come in and travel through the car.
Yes, that bit down the left.
But at the end, obviously you can see the turning head. There's a standard turning head here, which we have in most standard developments. And that's been tracked to demonstrate the refuse vehicle.
So they will be able to go in and negotiate without causing problems, even if there's not a vehicle along the road as well. They'll be able to pass and turn all the time.
Yeah, typically if you're making a manoeuvre of turning, then the truck is turning, cars don't tend to drive past at the same time. It's making that manoeuvre in the carriageway.
And it's the shared walking area as well.
There's footpaths all the way around.
Okay.
So there's footpaths to the rear of the parking, out towards the park, and obviously there's a footpath leading from London, from the SDR, so right the way through to the open park, and all the natural, the green space as well. To the south, there's a walkway up along through that vegetation section.
Last comments. I too am concerned about not only about parking, but about the volume of traffic that's going to come out onto the London Road. I know all the traffic modelling suggests it's going to be all right, but you still sit in a jam for a long time, even when traffic modelling says it hasn't made it any worse. That is my usual concern by most of these developments at the moment, especially before the NDR and the SDR are completed.
I'm just going to interrupt there and say this is reserved matter. The access has already been approved. So, any other points? Wayne?
Chris, could you confirm when the further end of the SDR is going to be opened? Is that
SDR?
The SDR, sorry. 2019.
2021 is currently the date in the programme for delivery.
And was that taken into effect when you did the modelling based on the traffic going onto the London Road?
Yeah, so in terms of at the time of this assessment, we did 2 forecast year assessments, one of 2019 and one of 2026, which is the end of the plan period. So in 2019 we only had this first phase in. 2026 it includes the full link through to Finchampstead Road near Tesco's, and that was the basis of the 2 forecast assessments.
And I suppose my only other question is, I feel that a lot of the questions, we kind of, some of the points made by the Town Council, we kind of missed the boat. This application, from what I hear, and unless you tell me different, that most of the stuff they've complied with virtually the same as the original outline. It does change the appearance of Wokingham, but as you drive into Wokingham, but we are where we are. I can't, I understand the traffic. It's changed the appearance, but this should have all been discussed when, as Mark said, it should have been part and parcel of the Town Council's discussions when the master planning was being achieved. Well, it was being set out and then being achieved and then put into progress. So I don't think there's very much we can do.
Right. Thank you for that comment. Wayne, any other members? John?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points. What is the density of this actual phase?
It is around the 60 mark, I think, just
So it's
marginally
60.
under, which is the range that was expected for it at the outline stage.
Okay. Tandem parking, will that only be with allocated spaces?
Yes.
Is there intended to be any parking management on site?
There is a parking management condition in the outline of consent, which is followed through all of the phases.
And who will control that?
The developer puts forward the management plan, obviously in the sections that will be adopted by the council, then obviously that's for us to work with the applicant.
Okay, right. And how do you control the size of delivery trucks?
Well, in terms of how we've done in terms of other applications and the town centre region team, obviously in that application there was an established size of vehicle that would enter and exit, similar to how we have on other schemes. But that's something we need to work with them. This application here, they need to submit that to us and we need to review it.
And you're confident you can physically constrain the size of trucks that go into this site to deliver goods?
Yes.
You are. Okay, well, that's fine. Just one other point on the London Road. The London Road, I mean, we've got a lot of roadworks going on in that part of the world, but it does tend, the first thing in the morning, to be a traffic jam. You've got traffic coming out of this development onto the London Road. Turning left, I can see towards the town, I think that's not going to be a problem. But turning right could be a problem there. Are you intending to put any traffic calming, cross-hatching, or any sort of island there to refuge for anybody?
Where do you mean, onto London Road itself?
Onto the London Road itself. Because I can understand it turning left going towards town, but you're going to have cars which are going to go into the traffic and you're going to have them sitting across the road there.
I'm not sure which bit, are you, the junction with London Road is signalised?
It's
that's already signalised on your junction.
So
this junction here coming out of this parcel is onto the SDR.
Right, okay.
Which is where
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions from anyone? Okay. It might seem that we've gone through this application very quickly for a number of houses, but you do need to bear in mind that it is reserved matters. So it had previously come to committee and been discussed for a long time. Right, we have a recommendation then on page 13, which is to approve reserved matters, subject to the conditions laid out in the agenda. Plus, on the members' update, we have some conditions updates. We have an additional condition, number 10 there, and then we also have additional informatives. So can I have a show of hands, all of those in favour of approving this application? Thank you. All those against? I haven't got one against. Thank you very much. That application is approved. Agenda item is 124 on page 57. It's the land north of Hyde End Road. It's a full application for 32 dwellings with associated vehicular access, parking and landscaping. It's before the committee tonight because it's a major development and the committee went on a site visit on Friday. The case officer tonight is David Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the application is a full planning application for 32 dwellings with associated vehicular access, parking and landscaping connected with Bewley homes. The site is an allocated site within the development plan allocated for housing. It's currently a field site with a public right-of-way which runs north-south across it, bisecting it centrally. There is a veteran tree within the site, which is shown in this photograph to the left, which will be retained as part of the development proposals. The photograph at the top shows the public footpath from Hyde End Road, which, as I said, dissects the site. And to the bottom, there's an image of Fallbrooks, which is a Grade 2 listed building and obviously has a constraint on the site in that regard. And surrounding the development to the north, east and west is the Crop Gardens development, which is coming forward at this moment in time. This plan shows the proposed layout. The main access is proposed from Hyde End Road. The main service road for the development is 5.5 metres wide, which runs which serves the houses and from which radiate smaller roads at 4.8 metres wide. The development retains the central public right-of-way, north-south across the site, and retains the veteran tree in this location and the important boundary vegetation which has important ecological value for this site. All the dwellings have been designed to meet national standards in terms of house sizes, room sizes, and each of the dwellings also achieve the council's minimum garden depth of 13 metres. The development proposes a range of housing types, 3 and 4 bedroom houses, all 2 stories in height, with a mixture of both tile hung and brickwork and tiled roofs. And we consider that the development as proposed fits in well with the general character of the area. Parking is provided across the site through allocated parking spaces, garages and visitor parking spaces. There's a total of 92 spaces proposed on this site, and that actually exceeds our current standards by 2 spaces. And this slide shows how the development fits in with the wider development plan for the south of the M4 SDL. The development around the site has been consented and is currently under construction. And the development as proposed here would, as I said, retain the public right-of-way across the site and also provide accesses to the development, pedestrian and cycle accesses to the neighbouring developments that would improve permeability through the developments. Officers are recommending the application for approval subject to conditions and the completion of a Section 106 agreement within 6 months, and in failure of completion of that Section 106 agreement, we are recommending that we have authorised powers to refuse the application as is set out in the report. Thank you. Before your deliberations, I will just call your attention to the members' update. There's 3 issues that have been raised in that. The first issue lists the plans which are seeking to be approved. That will insert the following plan numbers into condition 2. Second matter relates to the deletion of condition 31, and where Thames Water have confirmed that condition is no longer required, as there is sufficient capacity to accommodate the development. And the third matter is just a correction to the report, confirming that there are actually 3 units of affordable housing to be provided on the site. Thank you, Chair.
We have 2 people registered to speak, and the first one is Nigel Boyer, Shinfield Parish Council.
Right, good evening everyone. So Shinfield Parish Council have known this site's going to be developed for some time. Mark did a very good comment on the SDLs that you have already approved. However, the SDL that you approved here had the access for this site heading northward onto the Croft Gardens estate. Now that this plan has come through, the access has been moved to south, exiting onto Hyde End Road. Now, Shinfield Parish Council believe that this is a potentially dangerous situation. It is slightly offset to Sussex Lane across the road. There is a further junction, Winston Close, Century Drive, and the Croft Gardens estate. So we're very concerned that this access, this new access that wasn't in the previous plan, is in there on a very long sweeping bend that is regularly used at high speed. So we have great concerns over the safety of this junction. So we also have concerns, as we mentioned, about the Fullbrooks house, the grade 2 listed building on the side, and to do with the footpath. We have previous experience on another site close to us where the footpath was so badly damaged that extra work was needed. So we need that footpath to be kept open during the construction to a good standard. They've managed to do that on the northern side of the Croft Road area, and we want that to continue. And I think that covers everything I need to say. It's just the access onto the estate on this new junction we consider to be unsafe and dangerous. And we'd like it to revert back to the original approved plan, which was exiting through the north.
Thank you. And now we have Daniel Lampard, the agent.
Good evening. Good evening, my name is Daniel Lampard. I'm a planning consultant from Lichfield, acting on behalf of Bewley Homes. Thank you for the opportunity to summarise our scheme. Bewley Homes pride themselves on the simple philosophy of building quality homes that people want to live in, located in desirable places. The proposal before you tonight is for 32 family homes on land that, as you're aware, has long been proposed for residential development. Indeed, it's land allocated for housing development within the south of M4 strategic development location. Therefore, the principle of residential development in this location has long been agreed. Following the submission of the application last summer, we have worked hard with council officers to agree an appropriate scheme, and this was resubmitted in December 2016. The design of the scheme also responds to the comments of the parish council, who we met with, and also reflects a neighbourhood plan. Your officers have stated within their report that the proposal meets all standards, represents good designs, and the applicant has strongly demonstrated a comprehensive approach to the delivery of houses. The officers' report provides a summary of the amendments sought and agreed, which we do not seek to repeat, but in summary, these revisions include an increase in the distance between the proposed houses and the adjacent listed building known as Fullbrooks. The amount of public space has been increased to provide a greater buffer to Fullbrooks and the setting of the retained, the veteran English oak tree, and the footpath linking the scheme with the new residential development to the north has been increased in width. There are no objections from any statutory consultees, nor has the scheme been subject to any significant objections, with a number of the concerns that have been raised being addressed by the revised layout. We note the comments raised by Shinfield Parish Council in relation to the proposed access onto Hyde End Road. This is a full application, it's not a reserved matters where access has been fixed by a previous outline application. The access proposed has been the subject of discussion with all relevant parties, and a Stage 1 safety audit has been submitted, which confirms that the proposed new junction would operate safely. The access only allows vehicles to the proposed scheme, so there's no danger of rat running through the wider estate. Your highways officers have raised no objection to this or any other aspect of the scheme. A detailed Section 106 agreement is drafted, providing financial contributions to the community, including affordable housing, infrastructure contributions, SANG provision and maintenance. The total contribution, including SIL, totals over £1.94 million. To conclude, we believe the scheme before you provides family houses, housing on land allocated to residential development, is in line with the Council's and National Planning Policy and those of the Shinfield Neighbourhood Plan, and as your officer's recommendation states, it is considered the application will deliver high quality development in accordance with the Council's spatial strategy and vision. For these reasons, we would be grateful if you could determine the application as your officers have recommended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I picked up on 3 comments then, or if you, Chris, first was the access on the Hyde Road and the effect on the junction, and then if we could have some comment on the impact on the Grade 2 listed building, and finally on the footpath being open during construction.
I'm just going to steal that cable. I think it's worth just for the access point of view. So this is a copy of the SPD that was secured obviously after the course structure was adopted. Now this is Sussex Lane here, and this is actually the location of the original, well, it is only a kind of an indicative SPD that showed that alignment, but the alignment of the original axis actually is in the location of the axis that's being put forward in front of us today for this scheme. It just happened that when the 3 Mile Cross Spencer's Wood application came forward, that this land wasn't party to the ownership that the other developer had, and as such, the access for the larger development actually was put in this location. So this access actually is in a location that has previously been identified, as mentioned by the applicant just now in their presentation. A road safety audit was required by us and was submitted by the application. By the applicant, that's been reviewed and obviously independently, and we found it to be acceptable. So that was just to give you a bit of confirmation to show you the SPD. So I think that answers that question.
And the safety with the junction being opposite?
Yeah, well, that's, in terms of that, that's one of the reasons that the safety audit is required to kind of give us, because to give you you know, there's something we do, we assess it, we were happy with it, to give you the comfort, obviously, so we sought a stage 1 safety audit to kind of clarify those points, to give you an independent assessment.
Okay, thank you.
So, in terms of the impacts on Fallbrooks, which is a Grade 2 listed building, the application has actually been amended since initial submission. Previously, there were 3 houses shown along this frontage, and there was also a house with its rear garden backing directly onto the Fallbrooks, which is this building here. Subject to these changes, which have been negotiated with officers, our conservation officer has reviewed the application, is satisfied that this has a much better relationship with that listed building and doesn't compromise the setting of that listed building to the unacceptable degree that was initially shown. So on the basis of those amendments, we've recommended approval of the application. Now in terms of the footpath, which runs north-south, there it is, north-south through the site, it's a legal requirement for that to be maintained as passable, but if members are concerned about that, we could add that to the list of matters that would be specifically dealt with under the construction management plan.
Please. We can take that. Yeah. Right, members? Michael, then Rochelle.
Thank you, Jim. Just one bit of clarification, only. With regard to the listed building, have the owners of that listed building objected in any way at all?
Yes, they have objected to the application, yes.
Did they give any particular reasons why? Or have they been alleviated by the measures you just announced?
Well, they've objected because of the setting on their building. We don't feel that that would substantiate a reason for refusal, hence our recommendation for approval.
That's interesting. Thank you.
And a third of the density of the previous application. I would like to say this is actually not boring in any way, shape, or form. And I prefer this to the dense wrap from every other place.
Any other members' questions? Right. Well, I have one as well. On page 58, where we talk about the legal agreement, can you give us any indication of what sort of individual figures and things that you're looking at?
Yes. So in terms of the point one, the affordable housing, there are three bedroom houses being provided on site and a commuted sum contribution of £755,000 or thereabouts. In terms of the My Journey contribution, that will be £450 per dwelling, and that amounts to £14,400. The bus services contribution is £11,776. Maintenance of the open space will be secured to be run by a management agency. The SAM contribution is £23,000. The employment and skills contribution is £15,000. And I believe that's it.
And those all in line with our... Thank you.
Yes.
Right, John?
Thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. The footpath, I don't think you answered the question. Is it going to be left open during the construction stage?
Yes, it's legally required to be left open, and as I suggested, if members are concerned about that, we can specifically add that to the list within the condition, the construction management condition.
Yeah, I'd like to think that would be added to the list. Yeah. The other question, that is quite a fast road. It's a 40-mile-an-hour road. Are there any plans to reduce the speed limit on that road? I mean, it'd be dead simple, just recalibrate the camera.
That is one measure. I mean, as you're aware, there's a lot of call for people across the borough to reduce the speed limits on a lot of the roads at the moment to 30. In this section, as part of the wider SDL, there was this, I believe there's some funding secured for improving section 106s to identify some cycleway improvements along that section, which would also result in the reduction to 30 miles an hour, similar to how Basingstoke Road is receiving some traffic management measures after a series of works that are currently taking place out there, so we don't obviously interrupt.
Okay, thank you.
Malcolm?
Yes, a couple of simple things. The first one was the same question that John just asked about the footpath, so that's been answered. Second one is just clarification of something. It says on page 4 of the extra notes, delete condition 31, the Thames Water confirms the sufficient capacity. From my understanding, does that mean they simply say, yes, we confirm it's okay, we believe it's okay, that they'll meet the water supply level, or do they have to prove it somehow?
Yes, they've confirmed with Thames Water that there's sufficient capacity, so there's no need for that condition, which requires the combination.
That has some legal standing, does it? That they've confirmed it, so if it doesn't meet the standard, they will be held liable to fix it, will they?
Who, the developer or Thames Water?
No, Thames Water has said there's no need for this condition because it's sufficient capacity. If there isn't, who fixes the problem?
Well, Thames Water have confirmed that there is sufficient capacity, so it will be Thames Water's responsibility.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members wishing to ask any questions or clarification? Okay, in that case we can go to the vote. The recommendation is set out on page 58. There is sort of three parts to this one. So you've got the first one, which is completion of the legal agreement, which we heard what the figures are going to be. Then we've got B, which is the conditions, and we've got as set out in the agenda. We do have the extra plan numbers for condition 2 and deletion of condition 31. And in the informative, we said we were going to make reference to the footpath that's going to go in the construction management.
I would suggest that's actually listed within condition 13.
Oh, in condition, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that clear to members?
Can I suggest condition 31, just following on from what Malcolm said, that we...
The third one can hear.
Yeah.
We're not really seeing it, you and me.
Okay. Condition 31, I think we do need to say that the development is carried out in accordance with the submitted detail, that we can delete the roads.
I have not, everyone agreed with that. And then there is a point C on page 67 as well, that if the 106 agreement isn't signed within 6 months, it will be refused. So if we're all clear of what we're voting for, all those in favour of passing this application? And that is unanimous, so that application is passed. Thank you. You're all welcome to stay. Is anyone leaving before I start the next one? Third item then is agenda item 125 on page 91, which is the Thames Valley Science Park. It's an outline application for phase 2 of the Thames Valley Science Park. All matters are reserved except access. It's before the committee, it's a major development, and it is most certainly a major development. And we've got David Smith, case officer again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the application is for outline planning permission for phase 2 of the science park, which follows phase 1, which I'll give you more details of in a minute. This outline application is for 57,110 square metres of floor space. With phase 1, that will make a total of 75,960 square metres. The science park will be for uses for research and development, laboratories and high-tech uses, together with other ancillary and related uses. And the occupation of the science park will be controlled through a gateway policy, which will be managed by a park director, accompanied or helped by an advisory group, of which there will be a member of the council sat upon. Details of access are to be considered under this planning application and are specifically submitted for our consideration, but detailed matters of layout, scale, appearance and landscaping are not in front of us tonight for consideration. And the applicant is the University of Reading. So the application site lies to the north-east of Shinfield, just south of the M4. I think the committee will be well aware of the application site, having dealt with phase 1 and the reserve matters on phase 1. Phase 1 did approve 18,850 square metres in outline, and since that outline planning permission, reserve matters have been approved for the gateway building, which is this building here, which would sit adjacent to the Eastern Relief Road roundabout at the gateway to the site, and for a cancer treatment centre, which was phase 1B of the development, and that would sit within the site here. So those have secure planning permission and construction is underway for these developments. So these are photographs taken from Cutbush Lane. I'm not sure the best light to view these in. The site does itself fall down from the science park site or the phase 1 towards Cutbush Lane and to the north of the development. You can see here that the phase 1 building is, the shell of the phase 1 building is constructed now, and that's coming along. But you'll note that this, the Cutbush Lane is very rural in character at this moment in time. So this is the parameter plan that has been submitted for our consideration under the Outline Planning Commission. It sets the parameters within which the reserve matters planning applications are intended to be brought forward, and within that it sets the development heights upon different parcels of the site, which would range from 2-storey, the pink areas, rising up to 4-storey in the light blue area, rising up to 5-storey in the purple area to the top there. with car parking shown to the north of the site, which is a continuation of the phase 1 development that has been approved. Whilst there is 5-storey development proposed within this dark blue area, the 5-storey development would not exceed 74 AOD above ordnance datum. And in comparison to the gateway building stands at 73 AOD, so it would only be a metre higher. And the reason why 5-storey can be accommodated in that area is because of the fall of the land. As said, we're only looking at the outline of the development, so the principle of the development and detailed matters of access. But as part of the application, it has been accompanied with a whole raft of documents which have set out or demonstrated to our satisfaction that high quality development can be brought forward within the parameters that we are looking to consider tonight. The developers have produced these illustrative master plans which shows the footprints of buildings and how they could potentially sit within the site moving forward. They show potential heights of buildings that would graduate downwards towards Cutbush Lane on plateaus as those fall with the site. And they have started doing a bit of work on the facades of the buildings and how those could potentially come forward and link into one another. And within the report, there is mention made to this central spine which links the development, which is this central spine here, which would run through the development and provide these high quality open spaces that would allow users of the development to spill out, to congregate, to share ideas, etc. As I said, access for the development is proposed in detail. These are the access drawings that have been provided for our consideration. Main change would be the introduction of an additional lane to allow vehicles to draw off of the Eastern Relief Road if that is required. And at this moment in time, it's shown as potentially required as part of the modelling, but we're not convinced that it will be required in the event because parking and trip generation related to the development will not necessarily be as projected in the modelling because it won't be as severe as the worst case in the modelling is setting out. So in terms of the section 106, we've drafted that in a way that the provision of this additional access lane would only be implemented at Wokingham's requirement. So officers are recommending the application for approval, subject to conditions in the section 106 agreement as is set out in the report. This is a sustainable development on an allocated site expressly promoted by the development plan. It would offer substantial public benefit both locally and regionally in terms of creation of employment opportunities, meeting the south of the M4 SDL aspirations and driving the region's knowledge economy. Thank you. Before your deliberations, I will just draw your attention to the written update that's in front of you this evening. Again, there's a few issues on there. The first relates to the ecology condition, condition number 26, and just confirming that Wokingham's ecology officer has now had the chance to review the ecological mitigation strategy that's been submitted and is satisfied that that provides an appropriate overarching strategy for the site from which more detailed plans can be worked up on a phase-by-phase basis. And the condition is recommended there in light of that advice received from Wokingham's ecology officer. Second matter relates to condition 27 and just inserts an additional plan reference within that condition. And the third matter relates to a report correction, just to confirm that Reading, whilst within the report, Reading have been listed as an objection, a formal objection to the application. At this moment in time, they have not formally objected. They have, Reading officers have provided a recommendation report to their committee, which is sitting this evening, recommending that they object to the application for the reasons that are set out in the report. Officers have provided a rebuttal to those issues, and we are confident that we have sufficient assessment as part of the application, sufficient submissions to fully assess the application, and through the reserve matters that will come forward, we're confident that we can control both the public transport strategy for the site and the numbers of parking that will be coming forward as part of those reserve matters, so that the impacts of the development will not be severe and therefore not fail the NPPF tests that are set out. Thank you.
We have just the one speaker then, Nick Patterson-Neild, the agent. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, good evening everyone, Chairman, members. My name is Nick Patterson-Neild, Planning Director at Barton Rural. I speak on behalf of the applicant, University of Reading and Thames Valley Science Park. As members will be aware, the Science Park is aimed at supporting the growth and development of innovative, knowledge and technology-based organisations, particularly those businesses that seek to exchange ideas and collaborate with the University of Reading and other research centres. As members will also recall, outline permission was granted for Phase 1 back in 2010, supported by a master plan which encompassed the whole Science Park proposal. The application before members tonight for Phase 2, as you've heard, comprises around 57,000 square metres, and once complete will comprise in the order of 75,000 square metres or 800,000 square feet. And the present proposal is consistent with the original master plan in terms of both its spatial extent and its configuration. Members will also recall consideration of a number of reserve matters proposals, which Mr Smith has alluded to, in respect of both the Gateway building in August 2015 and more recently the Proton building in December of last year. The former provides multi-tenanted flexible accommodation with specialist lab facilities, offices and support at the entrance to the site, and the latter a leading provider of proton beam cancer treatment therapy. Both buildings are now under construction, as you've heard, with the first building due to open later this year. Now, the Science Park, as members are aware, is allocated in the local plan, specifically supported by both Core Strategy Policy CP15 and more recently the MDD policies TB13 and SAL07. National and local planning policies therefore both support the provision of the Science Park in realising economic and social objectives. And the proposed development represents a high quality design in terms of built space and the open areas of the site. The economic and innovation objectives of the Science Park directly interface with the proposed design rationale for the site, such as the central spine that Mr Smith has referred to. And the concept of the site is what is viewed as a next generation science park. The development of the Science Park is a key driver in improving skills, productivity and competition in a rapidly changing global economy. The proposals to establish and promote a regionally and locally significant innovation cluster aligned to the University of Reading, which has the ability to create synergies and links to other research establishments and established centres of excellence in key industries. And Proton is a good example of this, with its opportunity for connections with both the University and the Royal Berkshire Hospital. It is the embodiment of smart growth. So in conclusion, members, the provision of Phase 2 of the Science Park will be a dynamic social and economic asset to the Borough of Wokingham, which respects its environmental context. The park will raise the international reputation for excellence in teaching, research and enterprise at the University, and enables the University to maintain and enhance the contribution it has made for over a century to the local community. Shinfield in particular has a long and historical association with university research, and the development of this very much prestigious facility will be of lasting benefit to the whole community, making an important contribution to the global competitiveness of the sub-regional economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Just one question. What is AOD? Google will find about 76 different definitions and none of them seem relevant.
It's above ordnance datum, which is effectively above sea level.
John?
Just one question. I noticed Reading Borough Council, or the officers at Reading Borough Council, seem to think there are inadequate buses servicing the site. Is that in your view? What's your view on that?
Our view is that's incorrect. The reference that they've been making is the fact that some of the buses currently running in and out of Reading, their services are being reduced. The point is this site is obviously being established along with the public transport strategy that's been secured, which has in excess of £2.5 million worth of funding from the SDL. And as such, Phase 1 is already operating. We're going in and out of Croft, south of Croft Road. And obviously that will just further expand, and those services will come more and more on board as more of the houses build out Shinfield West, as well as the Science Park evolves and the Eastern Relief Road opens. So as far as we're concerned, the public transport strategy will evolve with the involvement of Science Park and the rest of the developments.
Chris?
Thank you. Sheffield Parish Council raised a question about the boundary treatment, which will be determined at the reserve matters stage. Is that coming back to this committee?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, can I just have clarification? You say we're not discussing landscaping at this particular stage?
Landscaping isn't, detailed matters of landscaping aren't specifically before us at this moment in time. What we have got is an indicative parameter plan which indicates structure planting along Cutbush Lane and improvements to the boundary treatment along the northern boundary as well. So the principle and location of landscaping, but not detailed matters, is...
No, I mean, my only concern was, I mean, the way I've seen this is driving along the M4 and it just looks like a building in the middle of a field, and it would look much nicer if it was softened in some way with landscaping, even when you're driving on the M4.
What I would say is the car park is going to be under construction, if not now, imminently, and there is landscape provisions within the car park. There's been approved as phase one, and we would anticipate that would follow its way down. So the car parking will be softened, but there will be a presence on the M4 because it's quite important that a building of this nature and a site of this nature does have a presence on the M4.
Malcolm?
Very good question. The amenity size, it's exactly 10% of the whole site size. It says that's for amenity and supporting use. What is supporting use? Is it?
It will be things like cafes, maybe creches, things along those lines. Uses that don't fall within the technology bracket but that are needed to help the other uses operate.
I have a question. You said that Reading are discussing the application tonight. If they do object and then don't accept our reasons why it's possibly okay, what is the process? What can happen?
Well, the application is asked to determine. It's a Wokingham application. We've had sight of their recommendation report to their members. If their members do ratify that, then our recommendation tonight wouldn't be any different. So the recommendation, as is in front of you, does take into account the opinion of the Reading officers.
Okay, thank you. Right, if we have no more questions, members, we have the recommendation for approvals on page 93, which is to approve subject to the following S106 planning obligations and the conditions as set out in the agenda, and then there's the updates in members' updates. So all those in favour of passing this application, please show, and that is unanimous, so that application is passed. Thank you, members. If people are intending to leave, they could move their vote now application, please. The last application on the agenda tonight, which is item 126 on page 121, the land west of Twin Oaks on Longwater Lane. It's a full application for the change of use of land for the siting of a single mobile home for residential purpose and parking for 2 motor vehicles and removal of a timber stable block. And members went on a site visit on Friday and saw it, and we have Graham Ward as case officer.
The site is located in designated countryside along Longwater Lane, a residential road in Finchampstead. Immediately adjoining the site is an established gypsy pitch to the east and an alpaca stud to the west. Further to the east are 2-storey residential properties. However, the road turns into a trap-free on the last dwelling. Longwater Lane connects to a public right-of-way and Longwater Lane Meadow, which is a designated local wildlife site. The proposal is for the establishment of a gypsy pitch through the stationing of 1 mobile home following the demolition of the timber stable. Access will be obtained from Longwater Lane and parking provision for 2 cars is proposed. Additional landscaping and fencing will also occur. These are the views of the lane from the end of the road and further down. The established gypsy pitch adjacent to the site is also visible. The site itself contains the timber stable and grassed areas, and views to the meadow site can also be seen. The site and adjacent pitch has been subject to previous planning applications. An application for a gypsy pitch at the adjacent site was allowed on appeal in 2010. The appeal decision recognised a shortfall in the number of pitches being provided and afforded substantial weight to the personal circumstances of the appellant. This was considered to outweigh the harm to the countryside and harm to the local wildlife site was overcome through a mitigation strategy. In 2014, an appeal for 2 gypsy pitches on the application site was dismissed, with the inspector considering there was a robust supply of pitches and therefore harm to the countryside and the local wildlife site was not outweighed. The current application is different from the previous in that only 1 pitch with 1 mobile home is being applied for. Additionally, the mitigation strategy for the impact on the local wildlife site has been considered by the council's ecologists and found to be acceptable. However, the main difference is the fact that there is currently a shortfall in gypsy pitch provision of 1 pitch. This is considered a material change from the appeal and should be afforded substantial weight. Planning policy for gypsy and traveller provision is set out in the Planning Policy for Traveller Sites, or PPTS. It requires councils to have a 5-year supply of gypsy pitches, and this is calculated through Wokingham's Gypsy and Travel Accommodation Assessment, or GTAA. The GTAA establishes 52 pitches are required over the development plan period, which is 15 years. The 5-year supply must be demonstrated for any year on 31st of March. As such, the current 5-year period, being 2017 to 2022, results in a requirement of 17 pitches. However, due to a shortfall from previous 5-year periods, an additional 3 are required, resulting in a total of 20 pitches being needed. Currently, there are 19 pitches with planning permission, resulting in the shortfall of 1 pitch. Therefore, allowing this application would enable the current 5-year supply to be met. It is acknowledged in the report that the harm on the countryside through the urbanisation of the site still occurs. However, this impact needs to be balanced against the need to supply pitches. The site is suitable size for 1 pitch and no harmful impact on residential amenity is identified. Additionally, no objections are raised with regards to public rights of way, and mitigation against the impacts on the SPA will be secured through a legal agreement. In the members' updates are minor changes and explanation of the 5-year supply position as I've already set out. As such, the recommendation is for approval of the application subject to conditions and the completion of a legal agreement.
Thank you very much. We have 4 people registered to speak, the first of which will be Gordon Vetch, Finch Hampstead Parish Council. Good evening.
Good evening, and thanks for letting me have this opportunity. Gordon Veach from representing Finch Hampstead Parish Council. Finch Hampstead Parish Council are objecting to this planning application for the following reasons. It represents a form of inappropriate development in the countryside. The proposed site is outside of the settlement boundary. The site itself is unsustainable. There's no public transport through Finch Hampstead Village and few other facilities. We also believe, or we believed at the time that we considered this application, that Wokingham Borough Council could demonstrate a 5-year supply of gypsy and traveller sites, and we are somewhat surprised that this no longer seems to be the case, and so it would be interesting to know what has changed. The application also contravenes the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area guidelines. And finally, at an appeal hearing dated June 14, for a similar development on this site, the inspector dismissed the appeal, concluding that the proposal would harm the character and appearance of the countryside. Thank you.
Next, we have Alan Dix, local resident. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, thank you for letting me speak. I have been a resident in Longwater Lane for just under 25 years. My comments are essentially similar to those given in a written form to the Planning Committee by my neighbours in Longwater Lane. The footpath at the end of Longwater Lane originally started from the property called the Field House. New dwellings have been added beyond the Field House, and the footpath has now become a track with significant potholes. An additional residence will add to the damage of the track and make its use as a footpath even more difficult and dangerous. A new residence on the proposed site with the associated gateway, parking area and fencing would further change the character and appearance of the semi-rural landscape. Amenity and lighting would have a detrimental effect on the rural area, especially the wildlife. It had been my understanding that the proposed development was outside of the permitted development area, and also that Wokingham Borough Council had already satisfied the current need for gypsy pitches in the area, but evidently that is not the case anymore. From reading documents submitted as part of an earlier planning application, the planning inspector cited various reasons for the dismissal of a caravan site previously, but one of the key reasons was that the site was unsustainable even for one caravan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Right, next we have David Wood, the agent.
Good evening, Chairman, members. The application before you tonight comes with an officer recommendation for approval, subject to planning conditions. In recommending an application for approval, it must follow that the officer has given due weight and consideration to the NPPF, current and emerging planning and development policies, and in particular those relating to the provision of gypsy pitches within the borough, both in the short and long term, as identified in the latest Wokingham GTAA. It has been demonstrated that the occupants meet the definition of gypsies and travellers for planning purposes, as set out at Appendix A of the planning policies for traveller sites. It has been demonstrated that the traffic generation and movements can be accommodated without unacceptable harm to highway safety of other road users. Please bear in mind that this section of Long Water Lane services not only the next door Twin Oaks gypsy site, but also the adjacent Easterwood Farm. In this matter, I would refer to the recent planning inspector's decision notice, which related to 2 units on this site, stating, "I envisage no unacceptable conflict between the traffic associated with the development and the pedestrians using this lane as a footpath." In terms of sustainability, the inspector again concludes in relation to this previous appeal, which was for 2 pitches, stating, "I nonetheless consider the effects of the aims of sustainability would not be unacceptable." In regard to the Thames Basin Heath SPA, I would advise members that a Section 106 agreement for mitigation payments has been agreed in principle. In relation to the treatment of foul waters, Thames Water have accepted and approved similar treatment systems at both of the adjacent properties, and which I am assured are working perfectly satisfactorily. I see no reason why a similar installation in similar soil and permeability conditions would not function equally well. An ecological report forms part of the submitted documentation, which satisfactorily addresses the issues relating to the Long Water Lane Meadow local wildlife site and includes an acceptable mitigation strategy. In terms of neighbour amenity, the proposal will not result in any harmful visual or audible impact, being more than 80 metres distant from the nearest property. A soft landscaping scheme forms part of the application, including both hedgerow and tree plantings. There will be no interference with the existing mature tree cover. This application is for a single small mobile home unit with car parking only. It does not include provision for a touring van or a day room, and as such, it will minimise any perceived harmful impact to the character and appearance of the area. I join the officer in recommending this application to members for approval. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right, we have the last speaker then, which is the ward member Simon Weeks. Welcome back to the committee. I think this is the first time since you shared here.
Strange sitting this side of the table.
I hope you've lived up to your high standards that you set when you were here.
Sure. Good evening, members. Thank you for attending a site visit last Friday. Clearly, this is a balanced decision, as referred to in the report by the case officer. Previous application on this site was refused at appeal, at an appeal hearing, which obviously is a higher test. But this, of course, was for 2 mobile homes, a day room and 2 touring caravans. If I could just quote from the conclusion of that appeal, and this is page 11 of the appeal, so it was quite a thorough test of all the information. The inspector said in his conclusion, accordingly, and I quote selectively rather than to read all of it to you, accordingly I conclude that the proposal would harm the character and appearance of the countryside. He went on to say, the general need for gypsy and traveller sites in the borough do not outweigh the harm from these issues, whether these issues are considered individually or together. Mr. Lee and his family are a long-established Finchester residents, and he is seeking accommodation for his recently married son. However, I'm elected as the local representative of residents, and 16 residents have raised objections to the application, and therefore I'm asking you to look very closely at the relevant appeal decision, and also to get clarification that the current need for gypsy and traveller sites, as detailed in the update, is absolutely accurate and correct. Unless you are satisfied these issues have been addressed, you should refuse the application. If, however, the committee is minded to approve the application, I would request two specific conditions that are added. A personal condition to ensure that the site is occupied only by Mr. Lee and his direct family members. Additionally, I would request a condition preventing commercial vehicles, and I think Chris could probably confirm, I think they're normally referred to as more than 3.5 tonnes, I don't know if that's right, requesting there's no commercial vehicles to be parked on the site. As you will have seen on your site visit, the access is across a narrow track and is not really suitable for frequent passage of commercial vehicles, and it is a public footpath. Okay. I have discussed both these conditions with the applicant, and he has indicated he would be happy to accept those 2 such restrictive conditions if you were minded to approve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I made notes from what all the people have said, just like the officers to come back on them, please. In no particular order, I'll go through here. The inappropriate for the countryside, and I think we need to link that one to the appeal hearing that Councillor Weeks read out about it, the character and the appearance, and the harm, it wasn't outweighing the need for the sites. So if you comment on that, and that obviously links to the need for extra sites. I know it's in the members' update. Again, if you could just take members through that again for clarification. That it not being in a sustainable area with no public transport and facilities. The location of the Thames Basin protection area being very close. And the effect on the footpath as well. When it was a footpath, now it's like we saw it on the site visit, as it was described with the potholes in it. And my last comment I picked up is the effect of the lighting in the countryside. And then there's the 2 conditions which I think probably members will want to discuss. There we go.
I'll deal with the countryside, and the need for sites really is linked. Certainly, as I've said in the report and in this meeting, that yes, there is harm to the countryside due to the urbanisation of the site, and yeah, there's no getting away from that, and that is what was set out in the appeal. The previous appeal on the site at that time, of course, said there was harm to the countryside, but did not have a need for gypsy pitches at that point in time, so there was nothing to outweigh that harm to the countryside. That is the material difference from that appeal to this application, that we are saying that we do have a need for gypsy pitches. And in coming to my recommendation, I am saying that I am placing significant weight on the need for those sites to the extent that it outweighs the harm to the countryside. The need for the sites is as set out in the update. It is unfortunately an ever-changing part of planning, but the numbers that I have are the latest that I've spoken to our policy team, and we are currently in this 5-year period short by 1 pitch. So by allowing this application, we would be able to meet our 5-year supply, and that would mean we would be in a much more robust situation for any future applications or appeals. In terms of the SPA, a mitigation strategy is being put forward by the council, and typically applicants contribute financially towards that. That is something that happens on numerous applications and is an acceptable form of mitigation. I received a signed copy of the legal agreement today. It does need to go to final checks for our legal team, but there is no reason why that won't be satisfactory. So subject to that being signed, I am satisfied that the impact on the SPA is mitigated. I will defer to Chris regarding sustainability and the public right-of-way impact.
Thank you. In terms of sustainability, we took into account some of the comments made on the consents and the appeal for the previous site, as well as looking at what obviously is in the facility. Now, I do appreciate some of it isn't the best in terms of the bus service. There's only one on a Tuesday, but in terms of some of the site facilities that are around, there's like a school, there's a few features like that, there's a shop up on the petrol station up on the main street. So it was really on a balanced view, which was then also reported back to the planning officer for that balanced approach to be taken to the overall aspect of the site. In terms of the public right-of-way, it is just that, it's a public right-of-way. The public highway actually stops about 115 metres prior to this site, and therefore informatives that are set out within the report obviously make it clear that whilst obviously the scheme may or may not get approved, it doesn't give them legal right over that public right-of-way, and obviously they still need to seek permission from the council's public rights-of-way team in relation to access over that part, as well as any works or any construction that may take place that may affect the public right-of-way. So that's some conditions.
Yeah, I'm going to cover that element. You also mentioned about the lighting. There's a few parts to that. In terms of the impact on the character of the area, it really refers to what I was saying about the countryside. Yes, it does have an impact, but as I'm saying, it's outweighed by the need. In terms of residential amenity, there is obviously the gypsy pitch adjacent to the site, but I don't believe that there's a harmful impact on residential amenity. And indeed, our environmental health officers have not raised any objection with regards to lighting. We could potentially look to control it through a condition if you wish that to be the case. In terms of the two conditions proposed, the personal condition, a personal condition would mean that it's linked to that person only if that's the wording that you wish to choose to go with. Doing it that way would mean that the pitch would still count towards supply, however, would just slight bit of caution in the sense that it doesn't mean that then that applicant could then essentially move off the site at any time, so then we would need to essentially re-provide that gypsy pitch at maybe a later date. In terms of the commercial vehicles condition, I have no objection to that.
Okay. I'll open it up to members now. Michael and then Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm somewhat confused, I think, to start with, reading the report under the summary, when it says here, it's acknowledged that the site is outside the assessment and would have a detrimental effect on the character of one gypsy site. So it is acknowledging there is an issue there, but then we're still riding roughshod over the issue, or officers are trying to do that, which I'm not comfortable with. I mean, what does beg the question, as we're one pitch short, can that pitch not be added to any existing gypsy site in the borough?
In terms of your first point, yes, as I said, there is a harmful impact on the countryside. It is an unbalanced decision, and I'm saying that I'm attributing more weight to the fact that we need a gypsy pitch than to the harm to the countryside. In terms of whether or not we could look for a site elsewhere, it's not for the committee to decide. We have to determine what is in front of us.
Yeah, I know it's outside the realms of this committee, but I thought it in the context of how it's been raised here, I thought it was a good point to actually say.
I've got Malcolm, then Philip.
Thank you. Just 2 or 3 questions for clarification, really. Sequence of events, mainly. It says on page 131, 128, it's proposed to connect to a septic tank as there's no sewer system near it, and this would need an environmental agency permit. Then the middle sentence says, EA decide whether to issue a permit. As such, from a planning perspective, no objection is raised with regards to the septic tank. Does that mean no objection has been received from EA on it? They wouldn't object. They would allow it. Is that what that means?
So the provision of a septic tank is a planning issue, but the environmental impacts of that are something that the EA would look at, and that's through their permits that they would issue. So it's something that they would, that essentially the applicant would have to apply for if they were to get planning approval, and they would go to the EA for that.
And they would have to have a septic tank for there, I'm guessing. So what I'm saying is, suppose we say this is all right, and then he gets there and he applies for a septic tank from the EA, and they say, sorry, we don't want it because it's at the wildlife site or whatever. If he doesn't get the septic tank, what does that do to our approval then? How does he function without it? Would he have to come back? Would he have to come back to us to ask for an extra sort of planning or change or something?
Potentially, yes. It would be up to the applicant to find an alternative provision, and if that required a different planning provision, then yes, they would need to come back.
Okay. Philip, then Wayne.
Yes, Chairman, can just be clear in my mind, if our supply of travellers' sites was up to scratch, would the recommendation be for refusal?
Essentially, the fact that we need a gypsy pitch is given substantial weight, and in my opinion, I'm then saying that that outweighs the harm to the countryside. So if you were to take away that need for a gypsy pitch, then you could certainly argue that there is nothing there to outweigh the harm to the countryside.
Did you want to add anything, Mark? Wayne, then Chris.
Question for you, Gloria. Page 128, number 7, where the last line where it refers to, although the Council has commissioned a new GTAA study, this is not yet complete. We've got the local parish council, one of the residents saying that they were slightly surprised at the way we've come up with our numbers. How up to date are these numbers? And could we have sight of the sites that make up the number of 28 versus the shortfall of 29? And where are they? Because I know that one in my area was approved by this very planning committee, and we didn't have reference, and this wasn't very long ago, we didn't have reference to being one short at that point. So could we have sight of these? And when is this study coming?
So the new GTAA is essentially being conducted now, and I think it is fairly imminent. However, obviously we would have to go through that, and it is not currently essentially in the public domain. So we have to base our figures on our existing GTAA. That was conducted in 2015 and set out the numbers required over the development plan period. I don't have to hand the exact positions of where each one is, but essentially my understanding through our policy team is that these numbers are up to date and relevant for this application.
Chris?
Am I right in saying that you may have a 5-year supply of GRT sites at one point, but as time moves forward, though nothing changes, you can you then lose your 5-year supply. That's what happened here. What's happened here? That explains Wayne's point, I think. Did you want to?
Well, it doesn't. I haven't got the proof that we've got that assessment that shows us there is further need. So I can understand it if something's happened, there was an inspector's report, like what's happened recently at Charville, that has increased our land supply numbers from 856 to 894. There's a definite stake in the ground. But I haven't got any evidence here that says that, to Chris's point, that we need a 5-year land supply, and what's happened recently, we've got this need, but I haven't got any proof of any need. Where's the supporting evidence of that need that shows a deficit of 1?
So the GTAA is that evidence, and then we as a local planning authority have to assess what we provide and what is being provided on the ground as well. And that's where I'm saying that we have 19 applications that have got planning permission, but 1 short of where we need. I can't really get the full GTAA for you right now, but by all means we do have that, and it's the responsibility of our policy team to keep the figures up to date and assess that. And we do that, basically each year, 31st of March, we have to be able to say what our provision is. And we do that literally by going around the borough and assessing what has been established.
Okay. Chris, is it on the same point, or it's Rochelle's turn next?
Based on the data you have right now, how likely is it that the inspector will return a refusal because we don't have the proper number of sites?
I can't predetermine an inspector, but I would say the need to provide 5 years supply worth of pitches is a matter that is of substantial weight from the council and from inspectors.
So that means likely.
Yes.
Right, John, and then we'll have Chris.
If I just refer back to our 5-year land supply, housing supply, we have on numerous occasions, I believe, gone to appeal, claiming that we had a 5-year land supply, and we've been beaten. But because the appeal inspector, as either said, well, it's not material, or he believes that our numbers are wrong. How do we know our numbers aren't wrong again this time round? And is one material? I don't know. I mean, I think the trouble you've got with inspectors, they're so inconsistent. I wouldn't like to put anything on them. What concerns me about it is the fact it's been to appeal. We've paid for that appeal. That appeal has been awarded in our favour, and this doesn't seem to satisfy any of those conditions that would make that appeal change, with the exception of the numbers, doesn't change the outcome. So I'm concerned about it. If it hadn't been to appeal, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about it. But we've actually had an appeal inspector say that it is harmful in the countryside, and you've just said that yourself. So I'm confused. It's not. Who's to say if we have another application next week for a gypsy site, it goes to appeal, and the appeal inspector might say, well, you're only just up to the number, we don't think you've got adequate, we're going to allow it. It seems to me that that's within their power to do.
You're just taking that as a comment?
Yeah.
You agree with me?
As I've said before, I am placing greater weight on the fact that we are short by 1 pitch. It is up to the members to decide if you want to apply the same weight or apply a different level of weight. And if you come to a different conclusion, then that is your decision.
Okay, Chris?
Thank you. This is clearly a balance between the GRT site supply and the appearance of what would be built. And as I couldn't go on the site visit, I think I'm at a disadvantage, so the final vote I will abstain.
Let's assume that this all does get passed. This road, or this lane, is in a pretty poor state to start with. as you leave the lane and you come onto his side, is it proposed that this is a hard stand, or it doesn't seem to say anywhere what he proposes to do, whether vehicles are going to be parked and will be access to them?
Longwater Lane itself and to the site, no, that would remain as it is. On the site itself, yes, there would be hard standing. If works to the two Longwater Lane, which is public right of way, were to occur, that's a legal matter to be resolved outside of the planning system.
Yeah, no, I was more concerned with his site. Was that his site will be a hard standing?
Yes, if referring to yeah, on the site plan, as you can see in the site, it will be hard standing.
At this point, members, do we just need to agree those two conditions, see whether we're in favour of those if we were minded to pass it? One was the personal condition, and the other being the no commercial vehicles. Are you going to suggest some wording for that, just so we can agree that before we decide how we're going to progress further?
Yeah.
Time for a second.
Okay. What were they taught all the way from the chair? Is it about condition you want to say, or is it something else?
No.
Great to know. In terms of the commercial vehicles, wording to the effect of no vehicles to be operated or stored greater than 3.5 tonnes on the site. Certainly, if you want to go down that route, perhaps we could agree conditions with yourself prior to determination. In terms of the personal condition, could you confirm if you want to control that to the applicant or the applicant and their descendants?
Not, what would you comment?
It would have to be both. Yeah. So it would have to be both. You could, if the main occupier deceased, you could require the rest of the family to leave the site.
Okay. Is this on the condition?
Did you just say 3.5 tonne vehicles or commercial vehicles? I missed whether you said commercial on.
You could say commercial vehicles. Difficulty is you can class a car as a commercial vehicle is owned by a company, so it's probably best to stipulate a size rather than
on the condition. Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate what I think Graham said, which is that if Mr. Lee and his family were to leave, then we would have lost our 5-year GRT site supply.
We've got the essence then of the two conditions that we're agreed on if we come to the vote on that. Right. Wayne, you had a comment.
I'm going to go back to this GTAA because I'm still trying to get this right in my mind. And bear with me on this. We extended some years ago the site in London Road to Wyford. We increased the number of pitches. We've got an official site in Hurst. We've got a single site that was approved from temporary to permanent just recently. And that's the ones I know of. And I'm sure there's more. Sorry? Arborfield. So, and there's more around the borough. I'm still not, with those, I'm kind of at 28. So I'm still, yeah, so I just think it would have been very useful to have that information in front of us tonight so we could see it, so we're making an informed decision.
If I could add, the section in the officer report about this refers to the 28 and 29 difference. The reason for that is it's a slightly different way of looking at the figures, and those figures are from the start of our accounting period, which was 2014, to the end of our existing 5-year supply, which is 2022. So in that time period we need 29 and we have provided 28. That's why that's slightly different from what I put in the members update, because what I put in the members update is looking specifically at the 5-year period. All of that worked, essentially the GTAA was conducted in 2015 and took an assessment of all the Gypsy and Traveller sites in the borough. Then worked out with lots of things, as we do with housing and supply, lots of things get taken into account, and we then generate how many Gypsy and Traveller pitches are needed over the coming years. And in this case it was done on the development plan period, which was 15 years. That then gets broken down, and you can say in terms of the amount of Gypsy pitches that need to be provided per year. We do have that whole document, and I appreciate, yes, it could be provided. Unfortunately, it would be an entire other officer report to it. It's that significant. But essentially it's saying that in this plan period we have a certain number of pitches to provide. We also have to take into account the fact that there may be a shortfall from previous periods, and in this case it's 3. So the numbers that I've been presented with from our policy team and from the GTAA are saying we need 20 in this 5-year period, and we've done 19.
And that doesn't take into account anything that we've already provided.
So when the assessment was undertaken, that would have taken into account everything that was there, and then we also then take into account all the pitches that we provide after that assessment's been taken. That is what I mean by the 19 that have planning permission.
So in 2015, we took into account all of the existing sites, and we come up with a number of 29.
Technically 52,
but
yes.
Right, so, okay, in 2015 we come up technically with 52, it's taken us from a period of 2014 to 2022.
Thank you, Chairman. The issue at hand is that there is an evidence base that demonstrates there is a need of one, and that's what the report is telling you. The comments from the Land Use and Transport team are that there's no objection on that basis. And as is normal when we present an application, we don't give you all of the evidence base behind every decision, although you do get the planning committee report in advance of the meeting so that you can challenge that if you wish. On the evening, we never bring an entire evidence base with us. What we do is present you with a summary. That's what you have. You have the recommendation from the Land Use and Transport team, you have a recommendation from the Head of Service, Claire Lawrence, and you have the case officer here to explain it's a movable feast. With any housing land supply, you have to provide so many a year. We've failed to do that in this case. There is a shortfall. In this case, the outcome of that is that there is an increased emphasis on delivery and the need to deliver, which is balanced against the harm that's caused to the countryside. And that's what you need to look at, not whether or not the evidence base is correct. What officers are telling you is it is correct, that there is a balance. You need to make a decision on the balance, not whether or not the information you've been given is correct.
Yeah, but with all due respect, we've got parish council and a local resident raising the same issue, Mark. And we've got to listen to what our residents and etc. are saying.
I'm going to jump in here. Yeah, I'd say myself and the Vice Chair on Monday brought up the question of the sites, how many there were, and we did look at it, and the officers have been providing us with information in the last couple of days. I do feel this committee has to accept we are one site down at the moment. There are a number of appeals out there taking place in the next few weeks. If any of those are successful, then we will have more sites than we need. I believe one of the appeals is for 10 sites. I'm not saying whether that's going to win or not, but if that one got 10, we're 9 over. But I think we have to accept that at the moment we are one site down. We, as Marcus said, we have to decide whether we think the harm of this application is greater than the need for one site. And so I would just like, I don't know if the officer has got the appeal last time, that page 11 that Simon read out. So I would like just to hear that one line again of what the appeal expected said about the harm. If you don't have it, I would ask Councillor Weeks just to read that one line out.
I've already said my bit.
And I would like to hear that one line again if the officer can't say it, please. Just the one line.
Have you got it?
No, I don't, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to hear that one line.
This is the conclusion, which is point 7. Accordingly, I conclude that the proposal will harm the character and appearance of the countryside.
And there's one other bit.
And then it went on to say, and the provision of various elements of infrastructure, while it has not been shown it would adversely affect the local wildlife site or have significant impacts on the SPA. The general need for gypsy and traveller sites in the borough and the personal needs and circumstances, this is a different bit, of the appellant and her family do not outweigh the harm from these issues, whether these issues are considered individually or together.
Yeah, thank you for just reading that bit for the appeal. Normally I would have liked that have been in the agenda, but it wasn't, so thanks very much. Right, members, does anybody want to suggest an alternative recommendation? Sorry, I'm not. Okay. Right. So if we don't have an alternative recommendation, then we will go to the vote on it. It's set out the recommendation to approve on page 122, and you've got A there, subject to completion of the legal agreement, and then the conditions and informatives set out in the agenda. We've agreed additional ones for the personal condition, and that's based on the family. And then we also mentioned one on commercial, well, not commercial, size of vehicle, wasn't it? Wasn't, and that was going to be agreed with the chair. And then on the members' update, we have change of condition on page 123 about including the ditch, and then it's just got clarifications. So all those in favour of approving this application, please show. Right, so we have 2 in favour, and all those against? 3, 5, 6. Right. That fell then. So, right, so now members, we need some reasons for refusal. Drop
Sorry, I would suggest that it's an unbalanced decision, and the shortage of one site does not outweigh the harm caused by this development in the countryside.
Agreed. Is there anything else you'd like? Anything else you'd like to ask around?
No, that's fine. I think in terms of it's outside development, it's harmful to the countryside, and it's not outweighed by the fact that we kind of demonstrated the 5-year supply.
I'm just going to look to my legal advice.
Do you want to defer it to the planning officer for the actual wording of the reason for refusal, or do you have something there, Graham, that you can read out?
Yeah, I've got something, but I mean, I think I'll be happy to defer it just to agree suitable wording with the chairman.
Okay, I don't mind suitable wording, but I would just like to read it out once more then the flavour of it, just so members are absolutely clear what we're voting on.
The application is outside of development limits and contrary to policy CP11, and that there is no other circumstances that would outweigh that harm, i.e. a ability to demonstrate a 5-year supply, and then also there'd be harm to the character of the countryside. And if I'd also said we would issue to refuse, you would need to issue another reason for refusal regarding the impact on the SPA.
Okay, members, are we all clear? So please can we have a vote of those in favour of what we've just heard the reasons for refusal? We have 3, 5, 6. Those against? 1, and I'm thinking 2 are Abstaining. And obviously Chris said he abstained because he didn't go on site visit. Right, that concludes the applications tonight. Thank you.